Welcome. I'm Jim Tolles, and today I want to talk about awakening from sickness. Awakening from sickness. And there's a couple different ways that title may strike you, and I'll probably talk about a number of them. The simplest, awakening from sickness in the sense of the ego being part of that sickness. That's a real thing, that the ego and our illusions are a kind of sickness. They get in the way of living well. And that leads to a second interpretation of this title. Awakening from sickness, meaning that you realize you wake up and that you're actually sick, right? So it's not noticeable. And there's a lot of different unhealthy problems that are going on in people's bodies. Gut health is a big one. Physically being, not the appropriate weight, not the right physical fitness, right? That could be a form of awakening from sickness, and you kind of wake up and you realize you're sick. That's what I mean there. And then kind of the one that I'm going to start with here is awakening from severe illness. That sort of awakening from sickness, because this is a very common road. More than a few people have had heart attacks and cancer and whatnot. And suddenly they're forced to confront themselves. So let's start there and work our way through these other things of coming out of the illusion and realizing you're not as healthy as you thought you were, and you're actually kind of sick or very sick. And then the last, how the ego in and of itself, the way it believes life to be, is inherently a form of sickness, that we're not looking at what's going on in front of us and we're behaving badly and inappropriately in all sorts of different ways, trying to get an illusion in our heads to be the reality. As a reminder, I've been blogging since 2010, and you can check that out if you haven't already at spiritualawakeningprocess.com. I do a lot with online classes and online spiritual communities. If you want to be part of one of my communities, come to a class. If you want to hear about classes, please subscribe to the newsletter in the link below. Severe illness really catches us. It scares us. And it shows us that we're not going to live forever, and that we can get significantly sick to the point to where we might die. And of course, in the story, sometimes it's someone close to you getting this severe illness. And sometimes it's just enough of a big enough shock that people are tossed out of their story. And how they get tossed out can go in a couple directions. And the broadest sense is like the one where you really let go and you feel deeply at peace. And suddenly it's just like, this is what's here. And everything simplifies. And for others, it's a much bigger existential crisis, because this isn't supposed to happen to me. How can this happen to me? That starts a search to figure out what's going on. Why is this happening? These are powerful moments. Awakening from sickness is not a joke when we're talking about severe illness. When we understand this well, we start to go through the process of letting go of our ideas. That'll always be the thing. That is what I talk about endlessly and have for more than a decade. We're letting go of ideas about what we think life is and who we think we are to accept reality. That's what I mean when I say we surrender to what is. It's nothing magical. It's just what's happening. And now how do I engage with it? Severe illness will wipe out a lot of people's ideas around the future to force them to focus on the present moment. The more severe the pain, the more that really does it. But then, of course, a lot of times we're trying to fantasize about a better future again to get away from this present moment. But what will need to be done needs to be done in the present moment. So this can be quite a shock to the system. And it's particularly a shock to the system if, let's say, somebody has one of those sort of oneness experiences of really letting go. It's like, this is just what's happening in my body, to feel deeply at peace while sick, and to realize that there is more to life than just you. The very selfish ego thinks the whole world revolves around it. And then you find out that it doesn't, and that there's also a much greater sense of connection beyond yourself. That could be a type of awakening for somebody. And then what do you do with that when you come back to it? Come back to yourself, come back to the old stories, come back to the illness. Right? There's a lot of navigation that has to happen then. And with any sort of awakening moment like that I'm describing, we are at building a foundation. We're not at the end of the story. This is the beginning of the story. I can't emphasize that enough. There's a video on this topic that awakening is only a beginning, right? These initial moments, spiritual openings, those are something else, another term I use in terms of when something kind of comes and goes. Awakening I tend to use as something starts to let go and keeps letting go. That's the simplest way that I can talk about it. And again, lots of resources on this channel and at spiritualawakeningprocess.com that talk through these different levels, these different issues that come up for people, and the different levels of acceptance that you have to go through, that the old way of thinking about yourself and about life, it's not right. And that's very humbling. And a lot of pride gets in the way and has to be let go of. Now, in a slightly different interpretation of the title, we can talk about awakening from sickness. In this sense, I was just talking about awakening and realizing you're sick, that you really are overweight, that your health is in poor condition. Now, you're not in the hospital. In fact, maybe the doctors aren't really doing anything with you right now because it's not severe enough for Western medicine to care. Now, that can be kind of shocking too. You're like, wow, I thought I was in decent health or good health, and then I realized that I'm not. Right? Awakening pulled away some illusion about your body, and you see that you're not functioning well, that you're not aligned well, that your spine and posture is terrible, and that's causing maybe some low-level headaches. Right? Low-level headaches, you go to a doctor and like, here's some more pain medication, right? It doesn't resolve it. And there's a lot of these types of health issues that people, as they let go of their illusion, start to realize they're having. And just like with the bigger, severe illness I was talking about, surrender, this is an important word if you're new to me. Surrender just means accepting and letting go of resistance to this reality. Because the ego with the less severe stuff likes to say, oh, it can't be that bad. It's not that bad. I'm all right. Or someone has it worse. Or right. It's all basically, how do I deny what I just realized? That's a big piece of the beginner's work on the spiritual path, is they end up denying, and denying. And then beginner, by the way, has to do with where you are in letting go of your ego structure. It has nothing to do with age or how long you've been meditating or doing yoga or going to this church or synagogue. It has nothing to do with that. You can go and do the things I just mentioned and be just as lost in your ego in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Because all your basic ways of thinking about yourself and projecting onto life continue. Breaking those down, we start to realize more and more about who we are and the nature of our body. And then you get forced to a choice. See, spirituality and surrender is not going to make you change your lifestyle or be healthier. You're going to choose it because you realize that's the most sane thing you can do for yourself and for your loved ones. Because between the choice of, wow, I can eat this terrible diet that continues to make me sick and give me, energy crashes in midday and make my brain foggy and make it difficult to work out, or always I'm sleepy, right? These are signs that like nutrition is not going well. As you let go of ego, you see you're doing that, or you could change to be more healthy. That's the choice. No one forces you to do it. So a lot of people are going to let go of ego and wake up to the fact that they're actually pretty sick. And then in general, kind of to finish it off, awakening from sickness, the ego is a sickness in so many ways that it is not actually helping us to take care of our lives and our bodies and the people in our communities and all those types of things that actually help support a healthy, sane human being. It is completely lost in nonsensical ideas that make us work too much, eat too poorly, not sleep well, and the list goes on. That is a root cause of a lot of sickness. And because that's the root cause, sometimes what happens as you let go of ego is certain diseases and illnesses and ailments do go away. That happens. But don't be confused as thinking this is magical. The stress and the nonsense of the ego cause immense problems for us. When we take away that piece, a lot of things resolve, but not necessarily everything. Some things are physiological problems. But these days, as I've done this work and I've talked to a lot of people, it gets harder and harder to see certain mental health disorders and physiological disorders as being free of impact of the ego and the lifestyles it chooses. They're so deeply interwoven that there often is going to be benefit. But again, there are no promises here. This isn't like a replacement for a whole variety of therapies of different kinds, and I can't emphasize that enough. Part of surrender is surrendering that sometimes the body does need certain types of medicines to rebalance itself, to heal itself. When things get really bad, we need a lot of support. This path doesn't leave anything out. I hope this video is helpful, and that whatever level of sickness you're finding, just a general sense of like that ego inside you is not well, or the more severe, that you do take this path seriously and letting go of your beliefs and illusions so you can surrender to what is and do the best you can for yourself and for those impacted by an illness or by your illness. Thanks for listening.